All right, let's jump right into it. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending episode 37 in Let's Talk Recruiting. Today's topic is different from what we typically do. Typically, our topics will go around and address issues or practices or ideas around professional recruiting and really getting into the execution of recruiting. So our audience is usually your experienced professional corporate recruiters. Something different this time is sort of an audience for future recruiters. So I think we all have an idea of how we kind of fell into recruiting. Into the panelists, I didn't mention this to you before, but if we get a chance to kind of tell the story on how you fell into recruiting, if you'd like. But we're going to sort of go around a round table and sort of ask what suggestions would someone who's been in recruiting for quite some time give as recommendation or advice for someone who's thinking about getting into recruiting. Because I will be the first to admit, I came in through an agency and recruiting is not what I thought it was going to be. And it took about a week for me to realize that. It was quite a different animal than I thought it was going to be. But 25 years later, here I am. So with that said, we have, I think, are we across the country or mostly East Coast? Oh, we're bi-coastal today. So with us today, we have Gene Sheehan out of the New York area. We have Eric Winkler out of Charlotte, Adeline Scarborough out of the Seattle area. Mahan, can you please say your last name? Because I know I'm not.
Catherine.
Thank you very much, sir. And myself out of the LA area. Mahan is also out of the New York area with Gene. So Gene, let's jump over to you first and sort of see what you want to cover first. And Gene, you just went blank. Can you hear me? Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen that one before. Hey, Eric, as we figure out with Gene, how about we start with you?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. Certainly great to be on. And this was a topic that I, certainly picked. It's near and dear to my heart. I never knew what I wanted to do 20 years ago when I graduated. I can't believe it's been 20 years already from college. But, I thought I wanted to be in human resources. To be honest with you, I was very, very fortunate to find an internship. Joseph Bank Clothiers, which some of you folks may know, obviously the clothing company, suits, and now certainly a lot of business casual wear across the country. They were based in Maryland, where I went to school, and I was fortunate to win an opportunity to be in their HR team doing an internship. And as I was, interacting with some of the HR professionals, benefits, compensation, all types of things, performance, talent management, I really just took a liking to the recruiting part. They asked me to help out with some of their summer ramp-up programs for their light industrial. It was their manufacturing, and I just really enjoyed interacting with people, calling folks, talking to them about jobs and opportunities, and bringing them in for interviews. And to be honest with you, I fell right into the recruiting aspect from the people connection and the careers. So, for me, kind of my background being all recruiting, it kind of started right then and there, kind of fell into an internship. So anyone that I speak to now that's looking to get into recruitment, I always talk about my experience of trying to get your foot in the door in some type of internship. Mine happened to be in HR with some exposure to recruiting. But some bigger companies out there, obviously have HR and recruitment internships. So I would definitely highly recommend anyone that's interested in recruiting. It might still be in college, or maybe they're going back to school, part-time, find ways to get into some type of internship or volunteer program that allows them to touch the recruitment process. You may not be owning it from A to Z, obviously, right away, but getting some exposure to it is something that I highly recommend. And that's kind of how I got my experience really focused on recruiting. And, again, just to give a quick background, I work for HealthStat. We are a on-site health center organization. We have about 250 clinics in 33 states. So my focus now, my team, there's 8 of us, and we handle recruitment coast to coast for physicians, nurse practitioners, medical assistants, nurses, LPNs, et cetera. So we also do go back to schools and try and find, folks that are coming out, LPNs, RNs, that are looking to start careers. So again, looking at their externship experience is something that's valuable to us. So I kind of circle that into the recruiting side of starting your career there.
Eric, I would sort of add to that, even just, let's say you're out of college, so hey, the internship is an offer or an
Sure.
option, but just what are your thoughts around, and I'll give you an example, that intro level assistant type position for somebody in TA or in HR. I remember years ago, I walked in my VP's office and he had hired an assistant on a temporary position. I can't remember what college she went to, but it was a very expensive one. I remember that. And I asked her, what she was doing was organizing his bookshelf. And I asked her, when you were graduating from your college and walking down the aisle, is this what you envisioned yourself to be doing?
Right.
And I kind of said it in a jokingly nice way. She sort of looked at me. She's like, no. I'm like, don't worry, it gets better. So to your point, it's like start at that intro level in that department that you want to get into.
Yeah, and I think, everyone's got to start kind of in a humble nature, right? That you got to learn somehow in some way and find an opportunity just for folks to see who you are and your work ethic and accountability and showing up and getting things done. And I think if you do some of those things, opportunities will present themselves. So whether it's I know Gene will touch on some of these, an HR assistant, a coordinator. Some of these bigger teams have recruiting coordinators where you help out, with opportunities. You might not be recruiting, but you're learning kind of the background check, drug screen process, pre-employment piece, helping with offers, things of that nature where you're around it. And again, I would say never, ever hesitate to look at a contract or a temporary opportunity that you can at least try and build, the resume with something versus nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to hog the conversation. Panelists, anything to add to Eric? Yeah, your point. Oh, Gene, sorry, go ahead. I don't think we can hear you though. There you go. Perfect. I got you.
I lost connection for a little bit. I was just I could talk a little bit about the HR assistant and getting into that. So again, my name is Jean Sheehan, Director of Talent Acquisition. I also handle compensation and affirmative action. And I'm with a company called Concert, which is a call center environment. But I've been recruiting for my entire career. And I started, as Eric mentioned, as a co-op, part-time co-op while I was in college. Fell into it. I needed a job. And it was posted at the college. I applied and was lucky enough to get it. And it was in the employment office at Xerox. And I worked there for over 3 years and as a co-op. And, that's how I got my foot in the door in employment and decided that I liked it. But as an HR employment assistant, I was scheduling interviews and typing offer letters and all of those details that need to be taken care of, reference checks, things of that nature. So I would definitely recommend, getting in the door as an HR assistant if you aren't able to start in a recruiter type position, because it's a great way to develop and learn the industry from the ground up. When I started at my current company, we were pretty small, and it was myself, and then I hired an HR assistant for recruiting. And that HR assistant, my first one was someone from an agency. She was a recruiter there, but she came to Conserve as an HR recruiting assistant to, again, schedule interviews, do background checks, offer letters, references, and some phones grew into phone screening as well. Now she's the director of HRIS and payroll. And my second HR assistant was a recent college grad. She did not have really any HR experience. She worked in admissions, so she did some scheduling of, candidates coming to the college environment, students, but not any specific recruiting experience. But again, showed initiative, good communication skills, just things that any employer is going to be looking for. And now she's the director of employee relations and benefits. as a company grew, so did she. And my third HR assistant was also a recent college grad and is now a established recruiter, talent acquisition specialist. And current HR assistant was in the call center environment. She was a team lead and, showed initiative in that position, motivated, hard worker. And so any way you can get your foot in the door is, if you're interested in employment recruiting.
Yeah. Gene, I would add to that, if I'm somebody out there looking for a position to try to get my foot in the door, the title recruiting coordinator, right, is sort of like this all-encompassing one, but it's a title that people use a lot. And
Yes.
I work in recruiting operations, so quite often the coordinators were reporting to me. When I'd interview them, I would always ask them, in a year, do you want to be doing this? Do you see yourself doing this in a year or more? If the answer was yes, I kind of talked to them about that because, well, I don't want you doing this in a year. You're here to grow. This is a growth position. I always kind of hired for people who didn't want to be the coordinator for a long time because I thought I would get the most energy and effort from people who want to work that way up the door. So that's one job title I would tell young people to search for. It's the phrase recruiting coordinator, because that you are truly right in the mix of a recruiting team. And if you are good at it, you are worth your weight in gold. Scheduling all these panels, I've never had more appreciation for scheduling coordinators in my life. But it's quite a contribution to a team.
Very true.
Agreed.
I would add too around just the premise of skill sets to get into recruiting. Let's say you are still in college or fresh out. This is kind of it applies to this role, but a telemarketer. If I was an experienced telemarketer, I'm learning to use the phone. I think that's a great skill set to walk out with a college degree as you practice the art of phone skills. And that certainly applies to recruiting. And this is for the panel, kind of along those lines of skills you could build before you got that foot in the door. Any thoughts around that? If I throw out like telemarketing, any other ideas around what are some skill sets that would contribute to being a good recruiter?
I think there are several, right? I think there's sort of a process orientation or being structured in your thinking and how you organize yourself. Having a client service mindset, having strong interpersonal skills, whether it's written or verbal communication. You are doing a fair amount of presenting. If you treat it like a client delivery type of model, I think mental agility, because you're constantly changing or switching gears and taking on different roles. I think being determined is probably a really key component, and also just that fearlessness. I think where I've seen recruiters fail often are ones they're just afraid to pick up the phone. You get a lead and you don't want to make that call, or you're trying to find a way to talk to the person without them hanging up on you. I think I've seen a lot of, candidly, recruiters who just are afraid to cold call. You kind of have to have that fearlessness to you.
And Sean, I would add, you talk about presentation skills. I think that's key. Some people certainly are shy in front of a group, right? But I think all the time you keep pushing yourself to try and get outside of that box and, present, whether it be via the phone or, meeting candidates when they come in. You're going to be dealing, if a lot of people have face-to-face interviews, or they're at least coming in and then they're going to introduce them to the panel. You're kind of the lead, so to speak, that keeps the glue together of the interview and making sure that the candidate experience is good. So, any type of interaction, face-to-face presentation skills are key. The other thing is, you have to have a little bit of a thick skin. You're going to hear no more than you're going to hear yes, whether you're in corporate recruiting or agency recruiting. And not everything that you have to present or talk about an opportunity is going to pique somebody's interest. And you can't feel as though, you may make 10 calls and 8 say no, but you're really looking for that 1 or 2 that are interested. And it's very, very key for young folks to understand that you're not doing a bad job. If no one's saying, yes, it's kind of comes with the territory, and you have to understand that and still have that mental fortitude to keep pushing forward. So I think that skill set of understanding you'll get more no's than yeses is very key for someone to kind of stay on that path to be successful.
And I'd have to agree with everything that you've all have said so far. And with that, I would say interpersonal, of course, is very important. And also knowing and kind of practicing and how and when to ask questions, because recruiters have to be able to push back sometimes, right, to hiring managers and ask the right questions so you could understand what position you're recruiting for, what type of client, or I'm sorry, what type of candidate the client really wants, or maybe they don't know what they want. And so you're that business partner. And so, we're more than recruiters. We're a business partner to our clients and our hiring managers, whether they're external or internal within our company. So I think those are really great skills to have as well.
And I agree with that. I think just strong influencing skills, I think, especially in this sort of day where diversity and inclusion and really looking at non-traditional candidates for some of your roles or a lot of your roles, you have to kind of push through the biases that hiring managers are going to have, and it's important to be able to articulate why candidates are a good fit for that particular role, or why you might want to take a chance on someone who doesn't have that normal or sort of that ideal background that the hiring manager might have inside their head.
Yeah, getting around kind of the psychological profile of a good recruiter. Again, came in through agencies, a different kind of world, but how this company hired, and at the time, the owner was, 2 desks down. It was an open room area. This is in the late 90s. The manager would stare at you all day and go like this if you weren't on the phone. But they would give you a psych test, and you had to match the psych profile of their 2 best recruiters in the company. If you matched it, you're hired. Here's $5 an hour. Here's your commission. Go for it. So there was like that motivation of money for agencies there. But I've left agency life a long time ago. I've been in corporate recruiting. I always get interested in one's motivation level. Kind of, Eric, to your point, it's a lot of no's. You need the one yes. And it's not financially incentivized like an agency or sales role. So I always looked at what is one's personal motivation, because you have to love doing this job, because you do get those no's so often. And the offer decline is a heartbreaker, right? You got to be able to deal with those when you work so hard on those. Any little sort of psychological labels like motivated, empathy, I think is a big deal. Kind of if I'm somebody who's looking, is recruiting right for me, what is something that is like a personality trace that I should have if I'm, again, at that young, and it's okay not to know what recruiting is because we all figure it out, but any kind of little traits that you think are important for someone to have?
Persistent, I think also. It's kind of, especially, it's funny because I think recruiters are kind of like salespeople at times. And so a lot of those characteristics that you attach to a sales professional, I think you should also be attaching to a recruiter from a different perspective. But yeah, definitely, I think being determined as well as persistent, knowing, of course, when to push, when to pull back, knowing those boundaries is important.
All right, I was going to say persuasion, negotiation, on top of what Adeline just said.
Both to the candidate and to the hiring managers, right? In a way?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So Adeline, let's jump over to you in your items. Oh, you turned off your video. There we go.
Sorry about that. It's so weird. There's construction going outside my window, so I'm like shutting the window. I'm like, it's hot. It's probably not the best day for me to be doing this panel, but hey, we're here now. So yeah. So I've been in recruiting for a few years now, started in the staffing industry, which is what I want to cover today. And I want to say that for those individuals who want to go into recruiting, thinking about starting in the staffing industry is really key, because that's where you're going to learn everything, right? From conducting client intake meetings to sourcing, which is proactive sourcing, very different from just waiting for candidates to come to you, as well as screening, interviewing, negotiations of offers, extending offers, doing the onboarding process. So really the entire life cycle of recruiting is what you're going to learn. And a lot of corporations look for individuals that have those experiences coming into their company as an internal recruiter. So if you want to get your foot in the door, I strongly recommend for you to maybe try and start working at a staffing firm or recruiting agency. They have several names nowadays, and then kind of gain that experience and then move on. Or you might love the staffing industry. It can be very fun and exciting. So that can be another path for you to continue growing and developing into leadership too.
Yeah, I would advise someone who's graduating looking for that route. I'm with you. I know some TA leaders who will not hire anybody without some type of agency background. So it's getting that strong. If you just go onto Google Maps, because staff agencies are pretty much local and many of them on site, it's not like a single site for a single corporation. If you just go to Google Maps, Google staffing agencies, you'll see a selection to go and apply from. And not to take away from anyone, but I kind of think they're all kind of the same. And it's pretty much the recruiter at the end of the line is how good that agency is. So there's no one preferable, in my opinion, over another until you get into the nitty gritty of it. Maybe one place has got a great manager. But Adeline, what are your thoughts around, okay, that sounds great for somebody. Is it just a matter of walking in and applying? I get with COVID, it's kind of a different world right now, but let's say post-COVID when things start to get back to normal, knock on wood, more sooner than later, safely. But what are your thoughts on, hey, I want to go try that. How do I do it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of staffing agencies have their portal, their career portal, where you can go in and apply. They're pretty good at reaching back out to you. The other thing I would say is find their phone number and just call them. A lot of staffing firms have a front desk person, and you can just call them and say, hey, I'm looking for anyone really. You could say, I'm looking for the hiring manager or the director or even just the market manager. Really anybody can help, even just a recruiter. You can say, oh, I'm interested in career opportunities. Could I be transferred to a recruiter? And then once they transfer you to a recruiter, you can let them know, hey, I'm interested in an opportunity with the firm. And then they can kind of guide you from there.
Now, I'll push back on you a little bit like that. If it's local, I'm just walking in, show a little bit more, show some gumption. So if it's like,
yes,
driving.
Do it. I'm huge when it comes to the more proactive, the more face-to-face interaction you can get. Perfect. But like you said, COVID, I think that's why I kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just walk in and say, hey, I'm interested in an opportunity. And then may I speak to someone? And I'm sure they can help and get you connected with somebody that's there on site.
I would say it should go without saying, but I feel I need to say it. Go in looking sharp, right? That's you're interviewing, even if you're just dropping off your resume, right? It's that face-to-face game.
Yeah.
And any other panelists to add to that? If I want to go that staffing agency route, any suggestions on that?
I mean, I would just add as well. I mean, with the tools we have today, like a LinkedIn, and I'm sure, most folks are on LinkedIn, say you find a specific staffing firm in your market, go try and find, a leader or recruiter by name and try and reach out to them on LinkedIn, let them know you're interested. Also pick up the phone or find their email address or show up in person. And if you go after somebody targeted direct and you're interested, a little bit about their background. I see you've been with the firm 3 or 4 years. Something must be going great. I'm interested in this recruitment field. And you put a little bit of a, twist and some more energy to it where it's targeted towards that individual and that firm and that location. Some things about them. I think that's a great skill set and a great way to go directly to someone. I was a division director before in a staffing firm. And if somebody came to me directly looking to be in my office or they heard of us, I immediately would pick up that phone. Not very many people reach out about staffing agency positions. So that would really intrigue me if somebody did that level of research to find who I was and came directly to talk to me.
That's a really good point, because being a recruiter, or that's the job you want, I think hiring managers will appreciate that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the person I want. They're calling me, they're stalking me on LinkedIn, which is what we do. We love stalking.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Those are great points.
Right, what we do.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other additions to that, or Mahan, we can sort of jump into your items also.
Sure, and I think it kind of dovetails into what was just said. So I came to recruiting like most other people. I kind of backed into it. I was a trader on Wall Street, working for one of the large sell-side banks for a long time. I spent 8 years covering, the emerging markets, Europe, the UK, and then Asia Pacific. I went back to grad school. After grad school, I rejoined another investment bank, and I realized I just didn't want to do that anymore. You graduate you come out of grad school with your MBA and a ton of debt, and you realize, what am I going to do next? And my brother actually was working at Spencer Stewart and suggested I come and work with them to try to figure out what I wanted to do beyond that. And I really enjoyed it. And it follows on something Eric said about picking up the phone and not being afraid. When you're a trader, you get screamed at all the time. It's your fault, no matter what. And especially when you're a junior on the desk. And so I had no problem with people hanging up the phone, people saying no to me. I also found that I had just a style that worked well with being a recruiter, and I didn't even realize it. I ultimately went to Aegon Zender where I learned how to, conduct a search. I learned how to run an engagement. I learned how to research candidates, how to engage with senior executives, most of whom had years and years and years of experience on me. I learned kind of the process, client relationship skills, delivery, presentation, candidate development. And so that's my suggestion is for someone who's looking to get into the space. There are, a lot of the large executive search firms have a research department where you'll get trained in a formal process, and you'll get the responsibilities over time to develop candidates, to reach out to them, to bring them to close, whether it's, Korn Ferry or Heidrick, Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart. These are all firms that have a well-established research platform, and it's a great way to learn. And if you want to go towards an in-house, model, and not sort of that partner track, a lot of the firms end up, kind of pulling associates, senior associates, and principals out of these roles.
So I think that point, coming out of college and applying for like that researcher role, is an example of one of those that
yeah, absolutely. And they now have internships. A lot of these bigger firms have internships, and that's really kind of how I got my start in recruiting. I worked in a research function at Aegon Zender, and then I went on, I became a consultant. And then from the agency side, I went in-house at BlackRock, and then ultimately ran my own team at American Century for the past 2 years. So
yeah, I think that'd be a great path to go to, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what recruiting is, but I know how to do research, right? I got my college degree, what have you, to go into that route. Along those lines, like I think those are type of roles, especially at your Heidrick and Struggles and Korn Ferries, and I'm just kind of guessing here, but I'm assuming a lot of those hires got jobs that weren't necessarily posted. So something I'd advise to a young person is to research the role you want to do, and to your earlier points about going on LinkedIn and finding those people, and then creating a description for yourself and reaching out to them. And this is what I want to do for you. And just go through the duties of what you're looking for, whether it be a researcher or a coordinator, to try and, if the job's not being posted and you want to separate yourself from the pack, define what you want to do, reach out and tell them, this is what I want to do for you, trying to get out of that pack. Because I always liken, if you apply to a posted job, it's like running a marathon where everybody starts at one time. There's a big circle of people. So you got to figure out how to separate yourself from the pack. So take the time to know the job, write out a definition, and start targeting your people as to what I want to do for you. And then that helpful addition to a new grads of research.
And also just network. I think, the one thing about all recruiters I've found is that they're all willing to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes, however much time they have, to talk to you about the job and talk to you about what it takes, what skills are needed. And that'll help anybody that's coming out of school understand. I mean, you'll certainly have a handle on what your strengths are, but it's also good to know what you can develop, what you need to develop to be successful. And I think asking, the more people you network with, the more you ask, the more you're going to know, right?
Go ahead, Eric. I would just add on to that. I think most successful recruiters also still have a drive to want to help people and be successful, right? So, if somebody reached out to me and was looking either for, a mentor or wanted some guidance or some pluses and minuses of the career, I would be all on it. Anything I could do to help somebody in some type of direction. I think most of us on this panel, as well as in our career, kind of feel that way. We also know there's a lot of, I want to use the word bad, but, recruiters that don't do good things for our industry and make, a good name for it. So we want to certainly help and make sure that folks that want to come into this business and this industry and the skill set, do a good job and get off on a good note. So that's just something I would add as well.
And I would just add, when you're speaking about networking and growing your network, at many colleges and universities, there could be local HR organizations you can join as a student member, SHRM, NHRA, et cetera. And if you can get some experience on the college level in those organizations and build from that, that's something you can put on your resume, that you're part of an organization, and hopefully you can leverage that to meet some professionals out in the area, in the community, and build your network.
And to piggyback on that, what Jane just mentioned, in terms of getting involved in school organizations, I know that you can even take on roles as a recruiter for those organizations. So that can give you kind of firsthand experience, whether it's a fraternity, sorority, I know they're always recruiting, as well as other organizations. And you can be the one that goes and grows the club, and then you can come to, your contact and say, hey, look, this is my track record of success, and go from there.
Adding to that point about at the school, I visited one school, this was many years ago, to do a demo on how to use LinkedIn for profiling and searching. And the people that brought me in to speak were with the career services. There's one specific person that dealt with, I can't remember her role, but her job was to go out to companies to come and recruit from their school. So at the time, well, that's a great way to, if you're there recruiting companies to recruit from your school, talk about building network. I now know these people at these companies who handle recruiting. As I move into recruiting, there's my network of recruiting. That was a good opportunity for people. And again, no offense to career services at schools, but I think they have plenty of opportunity for growth, if I can put it politely. And I think they welcome any and all help that they can get, because they're usually short on manpower. But let me ask a question too, where we talk about experiences, given that it's kind of election season. Let's say I'm waiting for this COVID thing to pass. I just graduated from college. I've been sitting waiting for the industry to open. What about being, let's say I believe in a candidate, being a campaigner, a telephone campaigner for a candidate of choice? Do you think that would apply into skills for being a recruiter? If I came and say, this is what I did during the COVID crisis, I worked the phone. This is where I was going with it. Any thoughts on that?
I think so. I think it as long as you tie back, I think any work experience can be relevant as long as you tie it back to what skills are going to be, a requisite for whatever job you take, right? And so in this case, if you're working the phones, you can talk about the outreach, and you can talk about how you dealt with people saying no, and how you dealt with selling your particular candidate, right? Because ultimately, what we do is, I believe it is a sales job to a large part, because we are selling something that somebody does ultimately want, which is a new job, a better job, the right job. And so I think when you talk about that, you talk about how you were selling your candidate. I think it's actually probably a harder thing to do in this day and age, when you sort of see how split people can be.
Your products talk back. That's how I always liked it. I'm not selling widgets because my widgets have feelings and opinions, and they vocalize them.
Yeah.
Human capital.
Yeah, it's interesting. Excellent. We're a little bit past that half hour mark. Did anybody have any sort of final comments or suggestions to give?
I mean, I'll just add, like I started, the conversation. I love my career. I certainly have had a chance to be on both sides, the agency as well as corporate, and there's pluses and minuses to both sides. But, I'm very appreciative of the opportunities I've had. And, I think if somebody just goes out there and approaches the situation, and connects with folks and networks with folks and puts themselves out there, I mean, it's a great career, whether you're just starting and then certainly develop. And if, your lifestyle goes a little bit different, and staffing agency isn't it, there's just great opportunities, and you can take recruiting in a couple of different directions. So, I've appreciated the opportunities in my career. I love what I do. I love meeting different people and helping people find new jobs and careers, and hiring managers, solving problems. It's a great profession. So if someone's listening to this and, has some thoughts about it, there's a lot of great opportunities within recruitment.
Yeah, and a lot to that. I agree. Ton of opportunities, whether it's leadership, whether it's external, internal. I mean, there's just a ton of things. And like I said earlier, and like you just mentioned as well, you're more than just a recruiter. I mean, you get to see the bigger picture and learn the businesses of whatever, industry you're in. So you're a business partner and a recruiter, and you get to help people at the same time. So there's just a lot of great things. That's why I do what I do as well. Is I love that feeling when I extend an offer and they're super excited and they come and say, oh, thank you so much for the impact you've made in my life. And to me, nothing really can replace that. And so, yeah, it's really, it can be a roller coaster ride, but it's a really fun one. And so for any of you guys considering it, I would strongly encourage you to, even reach out to, me if you have any questions. I'm sure everyone on the panel would be very open to chatting with you. But yeah, it's a great, fun career to be in.
Jean, any last words?
Yep. I also worked in the staffing agency and corporate, love them both. And I definitely want to reiterate what I think all of you have said, Eric, Mahan, and Adeline. It's a sales position in my mind too, but it's very rewarding and just a great career. I think it's the best part of HR.
Yes.
And Mahan?
No, look, I think, just to echo what everyone else said, I think a lot of us all ended up in this position, in this career, because we want to help people. We enjoy helping people. We continue to. I mean, I think, I'm sure I'm not alone. I think all of us have candidates and have, even ones that we didn't place, who just come back to you continually to ask for your advice, ask for your help, give you a perspective, or ask for your perspective. And I think it's really fantastic. And I think it's a testament to this job. And just as Jean echoed, I think this is the best part of HR, because you get to meet people, you hear their stories, you get to know them on a very personal level, and you're asking them to make a very significant change in their lives, right? Go from one job and come to another. And with that, you have to build a rapport, you have to build a relationship, and you have to take on that responsibility and really build that trust. And so, I've enjoyed it. I enjoy this career, and that's why I've been in it.
Yeah, I would add to it. I wish schools kind of put more emphasis on it as a career option. Maybe some places that have a human resources major are starting to touch on it, but I just think too many people don't know that it's a profession. It's a really good profession. There's opportunity everywhere. If you're, a company with any type of size, you're probably going to have somebody doing recruiting. So there's opportunities galore, because every company needs them. As we expand our what we do, where now you have marketing type recruiting aspects, you have talent management sides of it. It's just a great career path, I think. And hopefully schools will start promoting a little bit better, and hopefully we can get the word out to new students.
One more thing I'll add
Sure.
to what you said, sorry. And the final benefit, I think, of this career too, is that if you're a recruiter and a great one, and a good one, you always have a job. Trust me, I feel like you're always going to be employed, and you can even start your own business, right? I think some of you today mentioned you've done that before. So anyway, that's my last tidbit there.
And with that said, I'll let everybody go. Thanks everybody for participating. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Thank you very much.
Everybody, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.